After a nearly 2-week-long Olympic-sized break, we are proud to return to the podium Stan Solo and his guest Ed Buskirk as they discuss the Pop Century Resort. Join us now for gold medal information like this.
And the option that people don't really consider when they're at Pop is the fact that because you are so close to Art of Animation, you can. It's just as easy to walk over to that resort and go to their. You can do anything at their resort except for go to the pools. So those resorts are kind of linked in that way, and you can go to their dining room as well and explore whatever options they have. A lot of it's the same, but they've got a few different options as well.
That and much more coming up right now on The Solo Show, brought to you by Victor Naraki Realtor, serving Disney and the greater Orlando area with celebratingflorida.com. Let's face it, it's been a rough year. We are all of us dreaming of better days ahead, and a part of your bright new future could be a move to where the magic lives in the greater Orlando area of Florida. One of the biggest decisions you'll make when considering a move is selecting a realtor who can successfully match you with the right home in the right location at the right price. Victor Naraki is the realtor who can help you make the move you've always wanted to. Whether you're a first-time homeowner or are looking to move near Disney World, Victor is in your corner. If you're looking for an experienced real estate agent covering all of Central Florida, please visit celebratingflorida.com today and find out just why you should work with Victor Naraki. I encourage you to create a free, no-obligation account on this website. By doing so, you'll unlock the website's full potential and be able to enter specific criteria, save listings, and browse new properties sent to your email. Visit celebratingflorida.com today. And remember to let Victor know The Solo Show sent you. Broadcasting from the Solo Studios, located in the sub-basement 233 of Pop Century, here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the center of North America, on this little planet we call Earth. This is The Solo Show. On this adventure, Stan is doing a Pop-i-rific kind of show. In the guest host's chair is Ed Buskirk. He and Stan are discussing their favorite resort Pop Century, as if you couldn't figure it out from the Pop-tacular puns I'm using. So, let's pop to it. Enough. So, please welcome your host, the Pope of Pop Century. Oh, had to get one more in there. Here's Stan Solo.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Solo Show. I am Stan Solo as always, and joining me today is my good friend from the state of Texas, Ed Buskirk. Welcome to the show, my friend.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Stan. Good to talk to you again. How you doing, bud?
I am amazing, but you already knew that. How are you doing?
I am doing absolutely fantastic.
Right on. So, Ed is a fan of my favorite resort. In fact, you don't even call it what they call it.
No, I don't.
What's your name?
Well, we call it Buskirk Bungalows because we are convinced that they are going to name at least one of the buildings after us at some point.
See, I call it the Solo Studios.
Hey, there you go.
And of course, we're talking about Pop Century Resort in Walt Disney World. And we're going to talk Pop Century. We'll talk about the good, the great, and the things that could be better, I think. There's not much.
No, it's a fun resort. It's a really fun resort. If you're, especially for families, or especially if you're a guy like me that likes very kitschy roadside attractions and things like that. This is the resort for you.
Yeah, and you get that as you're driving up to the resort, where I have those signs when you first pull up saying color TV, air conditioning. It's like those old motels that you used to see as the 60s and the 70s when we were kids. And and the hotel itself is kind of motel style in that there's no interior hallways. There's only like exterior doors. And you can choose which, like there isn't much to choose from as far as you can have preferred rooms and pool view and standard. Right. Yeah.
I think there's about 4 different levels that you can choose from. You have your standard rooms, you have your standard, I think they call them standard pool view. Yeah. And then you have your preferred rooms and your preferred pool view room. I think those are the 4 options.
Yeah.
The standard rooms are really kind of the ones on the outskirts of the buildings, I believe. Of course, there's 3 swimming pools within the property, and then the standard pool views are located at each end of the property. There's one in the 80s and 90s edition, and then there's one in the 50s edition. Those are both the 80s and the 90s have 3 buildings dedicated to those, and then the 50s has 3 buildings dedicated to that.
Well, the 90s is actually, I guess there's 2 80s and 1 90s combined to make that one here. Now, people are wondering, what are you talking about 80s and 90s? We should probably explain that it's like a decades style. Everything is set for the 50s, 60s, 70s. And what kid doesn't want to stay in the 50s? The children today, the 50s are so cool for them. Yeah, right. It's directly across the river, across Hourglass Lake from the Art of Animation Resort, which is really handy and also pretty neat that you can just walk across to another resort.
Now, if you don't mind, I can give you a little bit of history here. You probably already know this.
I probably do, but tell our listeners.
So it was originally designed to be 2 different sections. They were going to be the classic years and the legendary years. And they were going to be right across from each other. That's why you have Hourglass Lake, because Hourglass Lake, if you look at it from a satellite, it looks kind of like an hourglass. And then you got what they still call it Generation Gap Bridge, that goes between the 2 resorts, because they were originally intending to put a 1900s section, the 1910s, the 1920s, because who doesn't want to stay in a depression area?
Well, exactly. You tell your kids you're going to stay in the 1950s. Could you imagine telling them they're going to stay in the 1920s?
Right. Sorry, kids, we're sleeping outside. It's all 10. And on up to the 40s on one side, and then the 50s through the 90s on the other. Yeah. So that was the original intent, and I think the Imagineers probably had a better idea with with Art of Animation.
Yeah.
And went down that route.
And that idea was going through until 9/11 happened.
Right.
And tourism stopped. It just quit. Like, people weren't traveling, resort guests. There was all sorts of deals at Disney at the time, and they didn't need another resort across the river or across the lake from Pop Century. So they put it on hold, and it looked like Sarajevo for quite a while. When you would visit Pop Century, like, what is that across the lake there? It's like blown up buildings, or they were half built, but they didn't look good at all.
So yeah, you didn't have that nice view that you have today.
Yeah,
but that was the original intent, and that's where you get the names for Hourglass Lake and the Generation Gap Bridge, and why everything's broken up into the different decades. So each one of them each section is themed a little bit differently, to that decade, to that era.
Right. So when you check in, after you pass all the kitschy signs of color TV and air conditioning, and I'm trying to think what else there is there, but they're cool. I like those. You go into the main building. What's the name of that main building?
I think they call it just the Classic Hall. Right.
That's it, the Classic Hall. And inside the Classic Hall, you'll find the gift shop, the quick service restaurants, arcade, check-in. What else is in there? I said gift shop.
Yeah, they something really neat for somebody who has not been there before, or even if you have been there before, is if you have. I always say, if you've got time, to look around the resort that you're in, you're going to find some really cool things. And behind the check-in desk, they've got all these shadow boxes of memorabilia from the different decades, and they're broken down almost in by year, so you can look at the cool toys or cool T-shirts or stuff like that, all in these shadow boxes behind the check-in desk.
So if you're a child of the 70s, 80s, 60s, 50s, 90s, you could really impress your children here by showing how smart you are by actually naming everything in all those shadow boxes, because they're going to see a little transistor radio and they're not going to know what that is even, and they're going to say, what is this? You go, hey, that's a transistor radio. I remember, or an 8-track or big wheel.
Yeah.
Stuff like that hanging off the walls.
We like to point out the Simon Says, game, where it had the 4 little lights that would light up blue, red, yellow, and green. and say, "Hey, well, that was our video game back in the day." And the kids, they just look at us and shake their.
Or the Coleco football game is in one of those shadow boxes as well. Yeah, so those are really fun to look at. I enjoy checking those. The check-in staff, I've always had really good service with the check-in staff. There's one in particular, I seem to get her like 90% of the time. I wish I remembered her name, but she's extremely helpful. She's kind of an older lady, but super nice.
Yeah. The staff there has always been. They've always been above and beyond. Anytime we've had an issue or something has come up, one of the times that we were vacationing there, it was right around the time of a hurricane, and I know you know this, Dan.
We were there at the same time. Yes.
Exactly. So there was a lot of anxiety around what was going on, and the staff was just incredible. The way that they took care of everybody and made sure that everybody had everything that they needed, or if you're going to be getting out on the road, here's the best way to do that, and things like that. It was really they were really good.
Yeah, we were there at the same time, and Ed hit the trails when the hurricane started coming, and I bunkered down.
Well, to be fair, we had left Houston that time because we had just had one of the biggest storms we had ever had. It was Hurricane Harvey. And we left about 3 days after Harvey, so we had to take a huge drive around all of the damage associated with that hurricane to get to Florida. And as soon as we got to Florida, they started tracking a hurricane that was headed that way. So I felt like we kind of, brought our bad luck towards you.
Well, anyway, so the cast member that I had, I went to talk to her, and she kind of gave me some tips as to fill the bathtub with water in case the air conditioner goes down. And she explained to me how the electricity works, and that if the power does go out, they have their own electric power system at the resort, that they don't rely on the city's power if they have to. And the power will come back on very quickly. She also told me what was really interesting is that the power grid is set up in such a way that the people that are in the rooms that have disability access, those rooms come up first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think, and she said it was because often they have medicine in their fridge that they need to keep the refrigerator going. And so those rooms will come up before the other rooms. She said it will come up really quick. She explained to me how thick the windows are and what type of hurricane they can withstand. It was really informative and interesting, and actually kind of calmed my nerves a bit, because my brother was telling me to take the mattress off the bed and put it up against the window in case the window caved in. I didn't tell her that, but she didn't.
No, absolutely. In the event of a storm, it's probably about the safest place to be in the state of Florida, because they are truly prepared for anything. And we had the whole reason that we had decided to leave is because we thought we would give up our hotel room in case somebody needed it. Really, we had one afternoon left on our vacation. We were going to be shopping in Disney Springs, and I thought somebody's going to need a room, and they're going to be coming in from the coast and need somewhere to stay. And we even ran into that going all the way back to Pensacola. There were people looking for rooms, so we gave up our room there and went on to Louisiana. It was quite a drive, but I mean, there were people in need at the time, and really that's about the safest place that you could possibly be in a situation like that.
Yeah, and not only are you safe during a hurricane at the resorts, or in our case, Pop Century, you're entertained.
Yes,
they were bringing in characters from the parks, entertained the kids and people like me. There were actually a lot of locals. I think the park ended up selling out, so it was just as well you gave up your room. A lot of locals came, and they were allowing them to bring their pets. So there was kind of neat seeing cats in the windows at that time. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the dining. There's no table service dining. This is a value resort. So the value resorts only have quick service dining, and I guess the thought process is that people generally going to value resorts aren't going to stay at their resort. They're going to go to the parks.
Go to the parks, right.
And there's plenty of table service dining. You don't need one at Pop Century, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
The menu seems to always be changing.
Right. They've got some staples that they put on the menu that they keep there, especially for kids and for families. There's always cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets and things like that available. Pizza's a big one, but they've also got some nicer food options as well. They've had some we've hit them on certain nights where they've had some nice seafood options and a couple of, it seems like, and then some Italian options as well. So there are some pretty good choices there. And I think there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's 5 different kiosks that you can go up to, not including the freezer section where you can go and just get, Mickey bars and cereal and milk and things like that. But just 5 different lines that you can go up to with different type of food. And so they change those out breakfast and lunch and dinner.
Yeah, and I've had like the salmon there, and like you said, the pasta dishes, and they were always very good. Even like they have like meatloaf and potatoes and gravy sometimes, which is a really nice meal to have, and the price is right too. I mean, all things considered, Disney, right. But you get that salmon like it was. I think it was like $12 or something like that for the salmon. When I went,
not bad for Disney.
and you go to a sit down and you get a salmon, you're paying $23, $24 for it.
Exactly. Yeah. And an option that people don't really consider when they're at Pop is the fact that because you are so close to Art of Animation, you can. It's just as easy to walk over to that resort and go to their. You can do anything at their resort except for go to the pools. So those resorts are kind of linked in that way. And you can go to their dining room as well and explore whatever options they have. A lot of it's the same, but they've got a few different options as well.
I have to say, Art of Animation's dining has gone downhill since it opened. Remember, it used to have like real forks and real spoons and plates and stuff. And I'm not sure if people were stealing them or taking them or throwing them out, but now it's all back to plastic and all that. But Pop Century's kind of stayed the same, but it is good. It is good food, that's for sure. One of the staples too that it's kind of like their signature thing is the tie-dye cheesecake that they have at the Pop Century.
Oh yes.
Are you a fan of the tie-dye cheesecake, or what do you think of it?
It's okay. I had it one time just because every time we got into the elevator, we saw a picture of the tie-dye cheesecake. So I thought, okay, I gotta try it. And it was okay. I mean, I took that as one of my dessert options one time, and it was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was a nice addition to the meal. I don't know that I would consider it famous, other than it's really pretty to look at.
Yeah,
but it was okay. It was good.
Yeah, I mean it's fun to try once. I found it a little bit on the dry side myself. I'd much prefer getting a cupcake or something from one of their grab and go, which is really exactly where the tie-dye cheesecakes are located.
Right.
Something that's unique, and I want to talk about this later, though, is the Skyliner. But what's really neat in the food court is when you get the reusable cups, they now have those metal ones that you can get for, of course, a little bit more money. But the Pop Century is one of the very few resorts where you can get a Skyliner cup.
Yeah.
Which is really neat in that you kind of have to only be at Pop Century and you have to or I guess what's that new DVC one?
The
ones on the anyways, all the ones that are on the Skyliner. The 3 resorts on the Skyliner are the only 3 resorts you can get the Skyliner, and it's a really neat souvenir for sure.
Right.
So that's something I would suggest getting. The gift shop, I have to say, is probably one of the better gift shops on property.
I really think so. Of all the resorts that we've stayed at or even visited, it's got a pretty sizable gift shop, and they carry quite a bit of merchandise. I wish that they did have some more resort-specific merchandise. I was just going to say
they're really good at that, at having resort-specific.
I wish that they had more. I just wish that they had more of it because there's, of course, you can get the pins, which we're pin traders. We'll go get our pin. Or let me rephrase that. I'm more of a pin collector. I don't trade them very often. So I find one that I like and I just stick it on my lanyard. So you do have the Pop Century pins and things like that. But I do, and they are actually. You're probably right. They are better than most.
Yeah.
At having resort themed merchandise, because I know a lot of the mercantile places in the resorts have stopped doing resort specific merchandise, and that makes me a little bit sad. I wish that they'd bring more of that back.
Yeah, because I went the last time I went. Now it's been well over a year since I went, but they had T-shirts and coffee cups and coasters and pins and magnets, and it was quite the choice of things. I bought a T-shirt, and
It might have been the time of year that we were there. The last time that we were there, they didn't have as much, so that's why I was disappointed in the selection. But maybe they've just brought more in now. And I'd certainly like to get a Pop T-shirt at least.
Yeah. I love it when the resorts have their own specific merchandise. Like the All Stars, it just says All Stars, and they don't have like All Star movies and All Star sports and All Star. Yeah, they just have.
And because we know that listening, here's just an idea: a bowling shirt. I'd really like a bowling shirt that just says "Pops" in on the back. I love that. But because we know that they're listening, I expect to see.
Well, and it just makes sense for a bowling shirt.
Yeah,
for that resort. Of any of the resorts, that's the one that makes the most sense.
Right.
Speaking of T-shirts, some of the stuff you could do at the resort, and I've done it. I'm not sure if you've ever done it, Ed, though. Have you ever? They do the tie-dye T-shirts in the afternoon. Have you ever done that?
We have not done it. I think we planned to do it a couple of times, but every time we just missed the mark at getting there when they're doing the T-shirts. But I have seen that advertised, and we'd like to take part in that at some point.
It's a lot of fun. I did it once, and I got to say, next time I go, it's at a weird time, though. It's like 2 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon or something like that. They do that. And I think they do that on purpose because most people are at the parks. Otherwise, they'd be inundated with people wanting to do it. Because they can only fit, I think, like 20 people at a day. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's I think it's like $20 you get a T-shirt to bring home that you made yourself.
Yeah, and that is a fantastic deal for Disney. A Disney souvenir.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mine didn't turn out that great, but I know what I did wrong and how to make it better next time. The main building also has an arcade. It's a decent sized arcade.
Yes, it is. It really is. I know a lot of the resorts used to have arcades, and I'm glad that they've kept this one around. We've also stated, as a family, it was one of the value resorts, but it wasn't. It was also our music. Mm-hmm. And they had an arcade, but it was pretty small. So, and their souvenir shop was pretty small as well. But I think the one over at Pop is probably three times the size of that one. So and the kids really like to go in there and spend some time too.
It looks small, but once you walk into it, it goes pretty deep.
Yeah, it does.
And that's it's bigger on the inside. To steal something from Doctor Who. Now the buildings, they have these huge icons as part of the stairwells, and then in the front of the buildings, each of the buildings has a huge icon. Now the 50s, you got the bowling pins, and there are 3 buildings, and each building has 3 exits. So that's 9 bowling pins.
Correct.
Well, you're missing a bowling pin if you're doing 10-pin bowling.
Where is that 10th pin? It's always a mystery.
The 10th pin is the swimming pool.
Yes.
So the swimming pool is, I guess, one of the pins fell over, and and there's a bowling pin shaped swimming pool, which is right in the 50s area, which is really cool.
Yeah. If you've ever done the scavenger hunt, we did the scavenger hunt. When we come back to with the kids. They used, I don't know how they'll be this coming trip, but they used to be so hyped up from the day, they weren't ready to get in bed just yet. So I would take them over to the Classic Hall. We would refill our mugs, and then we just go walk the resort. And one of the things that you can do is you can ask for a resort map, and they'll give you a search for these things in the resort, paper. And one of the things was to find all 10 bowling pins, which that was the one that they had the trouble finding, and we had to, you had to go up high to find it.
That's awesome. I was wondering if you did that, because I have heard about that. I haven't done that myself. And it comes like in a scroll, does it not? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Another fun thing that they do is they have that. Like, they always have classic music playing, and it's music from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right.
And every once in a while, they'll play The Hustle.
Yeah.
And when they play The Hustle, all the cast members in the main building, they all line up in the what do you call it, the Century Hall? And they do The Hustle, and often guests will join in as well, and it's super fun to see the cast members all doing The Hustle together.
Yeah.
in the hall.
Exactly.
So the next building is this. Oh, so hang on. So the 50s has Lady and the Tramp and Lady and the Tramp are the two big.
And then I think on one of the buildings is a big icon for like a jukebox.
Yeah, a table-style jukebox would be like in a malt shop in the 60s. And a cool little thing is to look at the songs that are listed on the jukebox. They're not real songs, but some of them are pretty fun. Yeah, there's a lot of fun songs listed on the jukebox. So this is like a giant jukebox that's probably about, I guess it's about 3 stories tall because...
it is.
Same thing with Baloo and Mogi, the man cub.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's the next one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So now we're in the 60s, and now in the 60s you got Baloo and Mogi, the man cub.
Yeah, and they do that because, of course, Lady and the Tramp came out in the 50s, and Jungle Book came out in the 60s, so they fit right into that 60s hippie era kitsch and things like that. So they're on one side, and then on the other side, I think that's where the Play-Doh set is.
Is it Play-Doh the 60s?
I thought it was. I could be wrong. You may be able to correct me there, but I thought
you're right. No, you're right. You're right. The Play-Doh is the 60s, and one of the little neat things with the Play-Doh is, so explain. Basically, I guess we should explain what a Play-Doh is. We're talking Play-Doh, like we know what we're talking about. It's a huge, giant, about 2 stories, Play-Doh tub, and sticking out of the tub is a blue elephant and a yellow giraffe made out of Play-Doh. I mean, they're not really made out of Play-Doh, but they look like they're made out of Play-Doh. A hidden detail, if you ever, next time you go, is go to the back and look at the elephant's ear from behind. You'll actually see that when they did these Play-Doh statues, you can see the thumbprint of the child in the back of the ear of the elephant. Right.
Yeah, it's they spared no expense, on the detail for the resort for sure. And these statues, they're everybody loves to stop and take pictures of them. And they make for great photos. So if nothing else, it's a reason to explore the buildings, just to take photos with all the big icons. Like Stan said, they're at least 4 stories tall. And they're really cool. They're really cool.
Yeah. So going from the 60s, we move into the 70s, and the 70s is two buildings as well. Oh, yeah, how they had the bowling pins in the 50s. So the 60s, they got the Duncan yo-yos.
Correct. Those are all the stairwells for all the buildings.
And all the railings have like different dances and sayings from those decades and icons as well. It's just fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah. The Imagineers put a lot of time and energy into layering the stories for each building. And you can tell that they did it with a lot of love, and they were just having fun when they were doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So in the 70s, the stairwells are giant 8-tracks.
Yes.
And again, you can look at the 8-tracks. They're not actual 8-track, but they're fun. Like they're. I can't think. There's a country one, and it has like different. My dog died or something. Like it doesn't say that, but you know what I mean.
Truck driving one. Like truck driving music on one of them.
Yeah,
that's another place that you look at the tracks on it. It's a whole lot of fun reading those.
Yeah, the little hidden things. So, what are the 2 icons in the 70s buildings?
So, on one side is the Mickey telephone. You don't get anything from the movies in the 70s, from the Disney animated features in the 70s, but you do get that Mickey telephone. And when we stayed in the 70s, I was so thrilled to be staying right by that Mickey telephone, just because it's a classic piece of pop art. And it's 4 stories tall, and it's one of the really it's my favorite statue in out of all of them. So I really like that one.
Did you have or want a Mickey telephone when you were in the 70s? Because everybody either had one or wanted one.
I wanted one. I did not have one. I did not have one.
Yeah, same here. And the other side is what? Is that the Hot Wheel?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's the 4-story tall. If you're 877 pounds toddler, then you can ride this big wheel. So
so where Ed gets that from is if you look at the details on the Hot Wheel, there's a sticker and it has the recommended weight of was it 800 and
it's like
877 pounds or something. That is the recommended weight to ride that Hot Wheel. So if you know a kid that size, they can hop on it probably. Outside the building in the 70s, there's a giant foosball table,
Yes,
which
yes,
makes for some great photos.
right. All the teams are lined up kind of on the grass between the two buildings, so it makes, you're right, it makes for great photo opportunities. Also in the 70s, I think it's in the 70s area, off to the side of that foosball table, there's a life size Twister game.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, I mean, it's just set up on the ground, and they've got the Twister wheel there. And our kids always stop in and play it, when we're, or they'll stop in and play it, and we'll sit on the bench and watch them play it. Because
you don't get down on, put your right hand on red. Yeah, it's a cool little fun area for sure. And it's like, and then also where the 70s is, that's where the main pool is, which is the hippity dippity pool.
Yes. It's right in front of the Classic Hall, and something that's really unique is they do have a poolside bar and restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the few, I think it's one of the few that have a poolside bar and restaurant of all the resorts. There's only a handful that have them, and Pop Century's got one. So we've taken advantage of that from time to time.
Yeah, that's the Pedals bar.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is kind of neat. Now, is that where yes, I think it's in the 70s buildings area, between the 70s and the 80s. They got that Goofy statue with the surfboard.
Right. It's kind of on the, if you really kind of have to seek it out, it's kind of on the back side of the 60s era as you're going towards the 70s buildings. So you have to look around the corner there to see it, but it's a Goofy with it's not a convertible.
I think it's a Corvette.
A Corvette, right?
Yeah.
And he's holding a surfboard. And
yeah.
Another really cool photo op.
And a fun fact about that is that's the exact replica of the Goofy statue that you find at the Paradise Pier Hotel in California.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, so if you go to the Paradise Pier Hotel, when you walk in, that exact statue is in the lobby, which is a very popular statue to get your photo taken with in California when you go. So something cool to see. So we'll move on to the 1980s, and 80s is, in my mind, the year or the decade of the Rubik's Cube. So, of course, they have the Rubik's Cubes as the icons attached to the stairwells. So you get to walk inside a Rubik's Cube.
Yes.
Now, what are the giant statues in front of the 80s buildings?
So one of them is a gigantic Sony Walkman that I owned probably 2 or 3 versions of when I was a kid. And, they were supposedly indestructible. I can tell you that they weren't because I destroyed a couple of them. But
they were supposed to be waterproof and everything.
Yeah, they were waterproof. We had a pool, so they were supposed to be waterproof. Sometimes you don't get that latch, on there right, and they weren't waterproof. But they were kind of an icon of that era. And then directly across from that is a giant statue of Roger Rabbit standing on a can of turpentine.
Yeah, which is really interesting because considering like this is a Disney resort, Little Mermaid came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it's surprising that they went with Roger Rabbit, which is awesome because you don't see nearly enough Roger Rabbit in the parks or in the resorts anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I love those details. And the cassette, the Sony Walkman, in front of some of the details in front of the Walkman, there's like, it's not encased in, it's not a cassette in the ground, but it's made to look like a cassette.
Yeah.
So if you look at the ground, that's some of the details to look out for. And I like at night how that little red light comes on the Walkman too. Like
right.
Power light. Those details.
That is very cool.
Yeah, those details are what amaze me. And in front of the 80s building, we have another swimming pool. And this time it's a laptop or a computer.
Yeah, it's a computer themed pool. So if you look at the pool itself, it's kind of supposed to be the monitor, and right in front of the pool is a ginormous keyboard. So you can again for another photo op, or if you want to play in the pool there, it's all themed to computers, and there's another giant computer going into the 90 section right behind the pool as well.
Yeah. There's a laundry room area here as well. And the laundry area, when you look at it from a certain angle, you can see that it's made out of a stack of floppy disks.
Yes.
which is a really, really cool detail as well. So you mentioned the computer at the 90s area. So the 90s area has one building, which is honestly is probably the worst building to stay at unless you have your own vehicle. It's far.
It is.
It's a hike from the 90s building to the buses or the main building. But it's fun. It has that giant computer on it, and a really cool detail on that computer is because it's the 90s, and I think it has like the Walt Disney World website is what the picture is on the monitor, and you can click which park you want to find out about. Well, it's not. I was going to say it's not.
It's not
Disney. It's not Disney Hollywood Studios.
Hollywood
Oh boy, I got MGM on the brain. Yeah, so you can click and find out about the MGM Studios. I mean, you can't really, but that's what's on the thing. If you were a giant person with a giant mouse.
Yes.
So it's one of the very few tributes to the MGM Studios that's still around. Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
Is that computer screen? Let's talk a little bit about the rooms themselves. They've gone through I guess it's not too recent anymore. It's been a few years since they were refurbished.
Yeah. It's been a few years, but I really, really like the upgrades. The rooms are some of the nicest rooms I've stayed at. Even many, many years ago when I stayed in a moderate resort, I would say that these rooms are better than the moderate resorts that I stayed at.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. But for what you're paying for, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the moderate resorts have 2 sinks. The value resorts have only 1 sink. So that's a little bit of a difference there. But other than that, they're very similar. They're a little bit smaller. They do have queen beds now with the refurb, where they used to have the double beds, which is so much nicer having the queen beds.
Oh, yes, it is.
So you have 1 queen bed, and then you have 1 queen-sized Murphy bed.
Right.
In the rooms, which during the day you fold that Murphy bed up, and it becomes a table.
Mm-hmm. And we will sometimes go to the classic hall, get food, and then take it back to the room and use that table as a quiet place to sit and have a meal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. There's a safe in the room. There's an ironing board, an iron, a small little mini bar fridge, like a little coffee counter where you can make yourself a cup of coffee. When I check in, I ask them, depending on if I'm there for 7 days, I ask them for 7 bags of coffee and 7 cups. That's my request when I check in, when I'm going by myself. If my wife was with me, it's 14 bags of coffee.
Yeah, there you go.
Cups.
You have a special Mickey's blend from Joffrey's that you're searching out when you do that?
A certain which?
Is that Joffrey's special Mickey's blend or something?
Well, no, they give you those little, they look like tea bags, but they're coffee bags.
Right.
For you to use in the room. So yeah. I make good use of that coffee maker when I'm there. The bathrooms are separated, where you get like the shower tub kind of in one room, and then you got the sink in another room, which is super handy for getting ready in the morning if you're a family. You get to kind of split up who's getting a shower and who's getting ready at the same time. There's a door that separates the toilet and the shower area, and then you have is it a curtain or a sliding door now? I think it's a sliding door. It used to be a curtain.
Sliding door
that separates the sink area to the sleeping area.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Another feature that I really like, there's no carpets, which I love, which is so much nicer now. But the beds are a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. So they're high enough now, you can slide your luggage underneath the bed, which is something that I really enjoy, because I like to unpack when I'm at my resort. Right. How about you, Ed? Is there anything else in the rooms that you wanted to hit on?
No, they're just really nice rooms. My kids love them. Because of especially because of that Murphy bed. I think it was their first time ever really seeing one. So, the way that it pulls down out of and transforms from the table into the bed, they got a kick out of that. And so it's something that goes that we make quite use of every day, because every day that they're out of the bed, that goes back up and it becomes a table. And the kids really really get a kick out of that.
Yeah, and if you're if you're into like videotaping and cameras, and y'all have phones and you have your watches and everything that needs to be charged at night, there's many USB ports in that room now.
Really are.
I used to have to always bring my little octopus thing to charge everything. Since the remodel, I no longer have to do that, because there's plenty of USB ports throughout the room, and the TV's a lot bigger now than it used to be too.
Yeah,
which is a nice added feature. The transportation, there's 2 modes of transportation.
If you don't include your car, yes.
If you don't have a car, there's 2 modes. Or I guess you could say there's 3 if you want to walk to Art of Animation.
That's true.
I will get to that, but I have used that other mode of transportation a couple of times. So the bus system is good. I wouldn't exactly call it great, especially if you're going to Magic Kingdom. That line to Magic Kingdom sometimes gets crazy long.
Yeah, of all the things that I love about Pop, this is kind of where I would ding them a little bit, is the bus service. And I'm fairly certain, just from what I've heard from a lot of other guests, that the bus service is not always top notch from many of the resorts. But I do know from experience at Pop Century, it's sometimes it can be pretty rough. And it's not necessarily, I don't fault the bus drivers, but they do have, I believe that they probably should have more buses coming than they do have going to each of the resorts. It just doesn't feel like there's ever enough.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. I've been there where in Magic Kingdom in particular, like the line will go from the bus stop right to the hall.
Yeah.
And around the side of the building. And right. That's when I just call an Uber at that point. I'm not going to joke around anymore. Yeah. The Animal Kingdom bus never seems to be a problem, though. And that's one of the great things about Pop Century, is that you're really close to 3 of the parks and Disney Springs.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a very short ride to Disney.
That is a very big advantage.
Yeah. I mean, Magic Kingdom's a little bit of a haul, but I mean, let's face it, you're not staying at the Contemporary or the Poly.
Right.
Yeah. So it does take you a very short period to get to the other 3 parks and Disney Springs. Now, the Skyliner edition is just phenomenal.
I cannot wait to experience it. I have yet to experience it, but I can't wait to ride the Skyliner. In my opinion, the Skyliner, or the addition of the Skyliner, just takes that resort up another notch, even above a lot of moderate resorts, in my humble opinion, just because you have that additional mode of transportation that is so unique and can provide you with so many cool views of, the parks and the property as you're riding it.
Yeah. And not only is it unique, it's quick and it's convenient as well.
Yeah.
Like the line in the morning can get a little bit long, but it's amazing how quickly that line moves boarding the Skyliner. It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. A lot of people were afraid that the gondolas were going to be too hot, and they're not. They as long as they're moving, you're staying cool. That's how they are.
Right.
And so, Ed, you haven't been since the Skyliner has been put in?
We have not. We haven't been since it opened. I haven't been since Galaxy's Edge opened.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been missing out on that. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and of course the Skyliners. Those are the big ticket items that I've got to check off my bucket list when I get there.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about the pricing. So I went this morning. So this is, what's the day we're recording here? Today's July 28th, 2021. And I checked out the pricing for a week that I would typically go. And I know Ed likes this week as well. The last full week in January 23rd to 29th. So don't quote me on these prices. Don't quote your travel agent on these prices. These are examples.
Yes.
Yeah. So All-Star Music and All-Star Sports were $121.67 on a night for those dates. All-Star Movies went up to $141 a night. Art of Animation is $184.17 a night. And so Pop was $160.50 a night. So it's pretty much on par for where it should be, I feel.
Right. We are, that's about what we're paying, and we got we scored the preferred view pool rooms for our next trip. It'll be the first time that we've stayed right there, but we will be directly between the Skyliner and the Classic Hall. So really looking forward to that convenience.
Yeah, which is exactly where you want to be, is in between the main building and the Skyliner. For sure. Just out of curiosity, I also checked Coronado Springs, which is like the least expensive moderate. And you're going up to over $200. It's $221 a night. That's getting up there a bit now already.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you are tacking on, how depending on how many nights you stay, and you add on your theme park tickets and all that. It'll get up there really quickly.
Plus, there's no Skyliner.
Exactly.
like just the convenience of the Skyliner alone, I think makes it well worth the increase going from to $20 a night for an all-star movies versus Pop. It's an extra $20 a night.
Absolutely.
And if you're a family of four, you divide that by the four of you.
Right.
That's pretty darn good right there. Was there anything else you wanted to hit on?
No, it's just it's such a neat resort. We take those. It's like a resort that was tailor made for me and my family because I love taking those long car trips where you go see the world's largest ball of twine, or you go see, we've seen the world's largest armadillo, and we've seen the world's largest road runner, and all those things. And we always, the kids roll their eyes at me, but I always stop and we take pictures. And so this is kind of tailor-made for my goofiness, so to speak. And I really enjoy not just the resort, but in the evenings when it's quiet. And sometimes the kids are asleep. Sometimes they go out on a walk with me. But you can just kind of walk around the lake. You can see the fireworks, some of the fireworks from the resort. So if you go out there on the lake, it's really peaceful and it's just really nice.
Yeah, you mentioned going for a walk around the Hourglass Lake. I guess neither one of us are really big into jogging, but there's a jogging path that goes right around the entire Hourglass Lake, and I think it's like 1.4 miles if you do the complete loop.
Right.
So for people that do like to jog, there's that as well.
Yes, they say it's 1.4 miles. It looks to be about 87 miles to me. I could be wrong.
And they have along the pathway. I can't picture jogging and reading these signs, but for walking and going along the pathway, they got all these really it's like trivia for the decades.
Right.
Like 1969, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, like that type of stuff. You get to read and kind of gives you something to talk about with your kids as you're walking along at night.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Ed, I want to thank you for coming on.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. It really is. It's always good to talk to you.
I'll have to have you on again. Maybe when you go, we'll do a trip report.
Hey, that'd be great.
Yeah, I enjoy doing trip reports. That's for sure.
And we enjoy hearing them too. I mean, it's just one of those things that just kind of puts you back in that magical place just for a little while. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ed, thank you once again. And Ken, take it away.
If you have a brilliant idea for a future edition of The Solo Show and would like to take your turn in the guest host's chair, then drop us an email at thesoloshow01@gmail.com. Tell us your idea for the show, and we'll contact you about a date and a time for you to join us. If you would just like to keep the conversation going or have a comment about a previous show, then visit us on Facebook at The Solo Show. All logos, sounds, and songs that are made by and for Disney and its affiliates are owned solely by the Disney Corporation and are not, nor are they intended to be, the ownership of The Solo Show podcast. We hope you'll join us for the next adventure on The Solo Show. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.